Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be drafting out this dress that you can see on your screen. It's a keyhole neckline bustier dress. So if you're interested, keep on watching and let's get started. So I already have my pattern paper. I'll go ahead and start taking my point. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 13 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my waistline, which is my half length, is 16 inches. So I'll go ahead and rule straight lines across all these points, and I'll label my bust point, my under bust point, and my waist point. So what I'm going to do is to take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I will indicate that with a point. To get my chest line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches from my bust point. So it gave me 8 inches. So I'm going to mark the 8 inches. I'll also rule a straight line across and I'll label it my chest line. So what I have on my shoulder line is 8 inches, which is half of my shoulder measurement. I'll go ahead and place the same 8 inches that I have there. I'll place it on my chest line like this, and I'll indicate that point with a dot. After doing that, I'll connect the dots on the shoulder line and the dots on the chest line. I'll connect the two dots into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So I'll place my tape on this straight line. I'll go down by 1 inch and I'll slant into the neckline area like this. The next thing I'll do is to place my tape on this straight line, and I'll divide what I have there into 2 equal halves. So what I have is 7 inches. Half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. I indicated that with a dot. On that dot, I'll go in by half an inch. And on my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll also indicate that with a dot. The next thing I'll do is to cover out my armhole. So I'll use my ruler to connect from the shoulder slope to meet the half an inch, and from there to meet the point on the chest line like this. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to go inward by 2.5 inches from this shoulder line. So this is how wide I want my shoulder to be. Okay, so I went in by 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to connect from that 2.5 inches to meet my center front like this. After doing that, I'm going to take my bust span measurement divided by 2, which is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. My nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 is 4 inches. Since this is a bustier dress, I went ahead to add half an inch to it. So I'm taking 4.5 inches on my chest line, on my bust line, on my waistline, and on the under bust line. After doing that, I'll connect all the dots into a straight line. The next thing I'll do is to go up from the chest line by 1 inch. That's because I don't want my chest area to be exposed by the time I'm done sewing. So instead of taking 8 inches, I went up by 1 inch. So the chest line is going to be 7 inches. So on the center front, I'll go inward like this by half an inch, and I'll indicate the half an inch with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect from this dart leg in a curve, just like you see me doing, to meet that half an inch mark. And on the side front, I'll place my ruler also, and I'll connect to meet the armhole area, just like you see me doing. After doing that, I'm going to blend it into the armhole area. Okay, so go ahead and blend this point into the armhole area just like this. So guys, for my darts, I'm going to be taking 1 inch on the center front and 1 inch on the side front. I'll do that for the under bust line and the waistline. After doing that, I'll connect the dots into a straight line. On the bust point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and I'll indicate the 1 inch with a dot. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect in a curve, but your curve should not be that deep. So I'll just connect like this, and I'll repeat the same thing for the side front. After doing that, guys, the next thing we're going to do is to tighten our over bust. Okay, we are doing this to avoid any form of gaping. So what I'll do, I'm not going to take the same measurement on the center front and on the side front. On the center front, I'll go out by half an inch from this dart leg, and on the side front, I'll go out by 0.75 inches. But before I do that, I'm going to go up from the bust point by 1 inch. After doing that, on the side front, I'll mark 0.5 inches, which is half inches, and on the side front, I'll mark 0.75 inches. After doing that, I'll go ahead and connect from the two dart leg to meet the 1 inch point. So guys, after taking in my darts, this is what I have. The next thing we are going to do is to create the keyhole. So you are going to determine how open you want the keyhole side to be. So what I'm going to do is to go up again from the 1 inch that I previously went up with. I'll go up by another 1 inch, and I'll indicate that 1 inch with a point. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect from that 1 inch to meet the curve that I already have on the center front. So if you don't understand what I'm doing, just follow what I'm doing. So I'll connect like this with a curve. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to go out from the dart leg on the side front. I'll go out by 1.5 inches, and I'll indicate that with a dot. After doing that, I'll place my ruler on the 1 inch point again, and then I'll connect from there to meet the armhole area. So just look carefully, look at what I'm doing. I'll place my ruler like this, and I'll blend this part into the armhole area, just like you see me doing. So the 1 inch that I went up with is how opened I want the keyhole side to be. So if you want yours to be more open, you can go up by 2 inches, and if you don't even want it to be too open, you can just go up by half an inch. Okay, after doing that, guys, I'll go ahead and start placing my measurement. On the chest line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll replace the dart. On the waistline, I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4. On the under bust circumference, I'll take my under bust circumference divided by 4. Remember to replace your dart. So my pattern paper is not enough, so I'll be adding my stitching allowance on my fabric, and I'll go ahead and label the yoke, the center front, and the side front. After doing that, guys, I'll go ahead and cut. So pay close attention so you know where to cut. So guys, after cutting out, this is what I have. We have the yoke, the side front, and the center front. What I'm going to do is to replace the 1 inch that we took. You know, while we're drafting out the keyhole yoke, we took out 1.5 inches from the dart area. So what I'm going to do is to replace the 1.5 inches on this armhole area, so we don't run short of fabric. So I went ahead to add another piece of pattern paper underneath this side front. What I'll do is to extend it by 1.5 inches, which was what we took out earlier. After doing that, I'm just going to blend from that point to meet the armhole area, just like this. So don't forget to do this. You can even do it on your pattern paper if you have enough pattern paper before cutting. I hope you understand. So I'll go ahead and trim out the excess. So after adding back the 1.5 inches, this is what I have, guys. So let's go ahead and draft out the back. So for the back piece, guys, I've gone ahead to draw out my points. So I have my chest line, my bust point, my under bust point, and the waist point. So the distance from my shoulder to my chest line is 8 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 13 inches, and the distance from my shoulder to my waistline is 16 inches. Don't forget to add stitching allowance to your half length. Okay, so I'm going to add mine on the fabric. Is because I don't have enough pattern paper. That is why my stitching allowance is not on this pattern paper. Don't forget that. The next thing I'm going to do is to take out my zipper allowance. I'll mark 1 inch, and I'll root that 1 inch into a straight line, and I'll label it my zip. The next thing I'll do is to take my shoulder measurement. Half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches. I'll place my tape after the zipper allowance, and I'll mark 8 inches. On the chest line, I'll go ahead and mark the same 8 inches, and I'll connect the two dots into a straight line. After doing that, guys, I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll place my tape on the straight line. I'll go down by 1 inch. I'll indicate that with a point, and then I'll slant from that point into the neckline area. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape on the straight line, and I'll mark the middle point. So what I had was 7 inches. Half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. I will indicate the center, that is the midpoint. I will indicate it with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. I'll also indicate that with a point. Next thing I'll do is to place my ruler to cover out my arm. Also from that middle point, I'm going to connect like this to meet the mark on the chest line. So after doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to go inward on this shoulder area by 2.5 inches. That is what we did for the front. So the front shoulder and the back shoulder is supposed to be the same. So at this point, you get to determine the type of neckline that you want for the back. If you don't want it to be too deep, you can go up from the chest line by 2 inches. And if you want it to be a little bit deep, you can go up by 1 inch, or you can just leave it at the chest line. So for me, I want a deep neckline, but I'm just going to curve like this for now. So I went up from the chest line by 2 inches. I'm going to connect from the 2.5 inches to meet the 2 inches mark like this. And you can also do a V neckline. Just place your tape from the 2.5 inches and slant to meet the chest line. It depends on what you want. So the next thing I'll do is to take my bust band measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is 4 inches. So this back is just a basic back pattern, so you don't need to add allowance to the dart. So I went ahead to take 4 inches on the chest line, on the bust point, on the under bust point, and on the waistline. So I connected all the 4 inches dots into a straight line. The next thing I'll do is to take half an inch on both sides, and on the chest line I'll go down by 1 inch. After doing that, I'll connect from the 1 inch mark to meet the half an inch that I took on the waist area, just like this. So the next thing I'll do is to start placing my measurements. On the chest line, I already have my bust circumference divided by 4. I went ahead to add my stitching allowance. On the under bust point, I placed my under bust circumference divided by 4. I replaced the dart and I added stitching allowance. I did the same thing for the waistline. So the next thing I'll do is to adjust my zipper area to avoid zipper bulge. So what I did was to take half an inch from the waistline. I just took half an inch away from the 1 inch and I connected like this. I'll also go up on the waistline by half an inch, and I'll indicate that with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to slant from the half an inch point to meet the waistline. So whatever you do, make sure the side front of the waist is the same for the back and the front. So I slanted like this, and I'll go ahead and cut. Okay, after cutting, guys, I went in also on the neckline because I want my neckline to be very deep. So I went in a little bit, and yeah, this is what I have for the back piece. I'm going to go ahead and place all my patterns on my fabric, and I'll go ahead and cut. Remember, I said I did not add stitching allowance to my pattern paper because I didn't have enough pattern paper, so I'll add my stitching allowance on the fabric. So guys, after cutting on the fabric, I'll also place it on my lining and I'll cut. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the pattern drafting tutorial. Stay tuned for the sewing version of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, leave your questions in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next one.